think it made sense for us to learn something about this balloon, given that it really posed no threat to the United States. I think the balloon presented a very low-level threat. I think this was a compelling news story. I think it was an easy way for Republicans to beat up the president. But I think the president handled this very well, has restored deterrence. We collected an enormous amount of useful information. There was no threat to the American public.
Just as you're sitting at home, that's a United States senator making those comments. Joe Biden went a step further yesterday, saying the Chinese spy balloon incident was not a major breach of U.S. national security. Nothing more than just a compelling news story, as you just heard the senator from Connecticut say. For more on all this, let's welcome in retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General, Deputy Military Rep to NATO, and Newsmax contributor Blaine Holt, and another friend of the show, author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War, Gordon Chang. Gordon, according to the president, this was not a major breach of U.S. national security. Do you agree with that assessment from the president?
I certainly do not agree. The important thing here is the way the world has viewed this. Regardless of whether Biden was right or not, the world views the United States as incapable of defending its own airspace. That fits into the Chinese narrative that the United States is finished as a great power. This leads to a further breakdown in deterrence. The Chinese have been telling us for about 2.5 years that we no longer deter them. We can't speak to them from a position of strength. And therefore, that is the prelude to a war on the Eurasian landmass at the other end from Ukraine. That's World War III, Rob. So, yeah, this is a big deal, and the president needs to understand that.
General, a poll was conducted by Rasmussen. This shocked me. Half of America, half the country says that we're going to be at war with China within the next couple of years. Half the country. When polls were conducted in 1940 before Pearl Harbor, they weren't as high as they are right now with us getting into the Second World War. 50% of Americans think we're going to war with China. What do you make of that?
China is at war with us. They already are. They've been at hybrid war with us for the longest time. They are killing 100,000 Americans per year with their fentanyl. And then to have a U.S. senator say that a balloon going across our nation, it's of little value to China, or it's not such a big deal. China just proved that the administration has some level of compromise, because they did this. And if I was in Taiwan right now, Rob, I'd be very, very concerned. Really concerning.
Gordon, so we learned a lot more. There were these classified briefings for the House and Senate yesterday. We learned a lot more about what this balloon was able to do. It was able to listen in on conversations on the ground. We can confirm that it was able to send data back to China in real time, take high-resolution photos. Apparently, the cameras on this thing are so good they can identify individual faces on the ground. So this is a really serious spy operation that the Chinese were blatantly conducting over the continental United States. How concerning is that, given that the administration is saying, it's just a little balloon?
There's something even more damaging to U.S. national security than the information they got, and that is they learned how we are going to react to an intrusion. They saw our rules of engagement. They saw specific general officers make decisions. They could not have learned that from any other means. A lot of people say, this is just a balloon. They've got satellites and other tools. They could not have learned that through any other way. It's invaluable. And the one thing that it did help us, though, is it showed the American people that the Pentagon is at this moment not able to defend the United States. And so I hope that there's a sense of panic inside that 5-squared building, and that they are actually starting to realize that this is real.
General, take a listen to Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, on U.S.-China relations in 2015.
China's not an enemy, and I think that's important for people to clearly understand. They are going to develop themselves and are developing themselves into a great power. That is not to say, however, that they are an enemy.
General, I am aware of the chain of command, but are the right people in charge in Washington right now?
In a word, no, they're not. And I remember the day that he made those comments. I was working on diplomatic panels with China, with my counterparts from China, and the rhetoric that you would hear did not match up with that. China viewed us as an enemy back then. They view us as an enemy now. And to Gordon's point, Their probing has netted them great results. But let's back this up to when the balloon came across. How did anyone possibly understand that it was simply just a spy balloon? Why did we just discount it couldn't have an electromagnetic pulse weapon on board? It couldn't be dispersing anything.
Right.
We just categorically said that's not the case. Why would the Pentagon do that? That's irresponsible. It's not what the American people expect.
Yeah, I agree. Not hyperbole, but it blew my mind that Joe Biden said this was not a breach of our national security.